It's March 9th, and over the last week, especially ramping up over the last few days, as we've seen in video released from CENTCOM showing the B-52 taking off for bomber operations over Iran, the US is taking the oldest bomber in the fleet, the Stratofortress, as some like to call it, flying deep into Iranian airspace after the stealth birds have softened things up and created silent corridors like the F-22, the F-35, the EA-18G Growler, creating a pathway for the B-52 Stratofortress to make its way into Iran and do some big things, as we're seeing, because the B-52 is hammering what's left of the missile network from Iran, hammering the production facilities as well. This is American air power and bomber power at its finest, with the B-52 being turned loose on Iran. And as we go to today, this was just 2 hours ago, you can see that they are striking these ballistic missile launchers extremely hard, probably taking down a lot of the production facilities still, since there was a massive amount of production facilities in Tehran and in the area surrounding Tehran. You can see these trucks being hit, likely loaded down with ballistic missiles, and those were launchers right there being said, bye-bye, we'll see you later. So CENTCOM is releasing this new target footage, likely these strikes, some of them coming from the B-52, with a Predator drone doing ISR, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, and getting BDA, for you acronym lovers, battle damage assessment, and then noting, okay, how many launchers are left, what capabilities are left for the regime to actually continue to launch these things at their Gulf neighbors. So here's some fact checking as well from CENTCOM. Basically every day the Iranian regime is trying to, put out falsities and basically troll the world. But I think everybody knows at this point they're like that bad ex that just keeps coming back, telling you lies. And at the end of the day, they just keep you walking on eggshells. But right here, the IRGC says it fired 4 ballistic missiles at the U.S. carrier Abraham Lincoln, and that things have now moved into a new phase, saying land and sea will be a graveyard for enemy forces. I mean, the balls on these guys. Honestly, putting out the propaganda and just pretending like it's real. But the B-52 is bringing in overwhelming and precise, unstoppable air power, especially in the last 72 hours alone. As we've seen this new footage being released of these sorties flown by the B-52, it looks like bombers alone have hit over 200 targets in the last 72 hours, slashing Iran's ability to launch any attacks against its Gulf neighbors. Because again, Iran right now is striking desalination plants, they're striking energy infrastructure in all their Gulf neighbors. We saw that Israel looks to have hit one of their biggest oil production facilities near Tehran. And now, Majabta Khamenei, the son of the former Ayatollah, was just named the new supreme leader. But with the B-52s circling in and President Trump calling this leadership decision unacceptable, who knows? This new Ayatollah might not have the longest lifespan when it comes to how long he'll actually rule in Tehran. But Russia is standing up saying they're going to fully support him, with reports coming in that Russia is providing intelligence and satellite imagery of U.S. forces and strategic sites in the area to try to help the Iranian regime. And then here's some other breaking news coming out of the New York Times. They said Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, hardline cleric who made Iran a regional power, dies at 86. They actually published this. They're like, oh, Ayatollah Khamenei, yeah, I mean, he was what a ball buster, but we love him. What a great guy. He had the best barbecues. Really, he just, was just a stand-up guy, and we really miss him. We miss him at the country club. We wish he was still around. I mean, it's just insane that they're painting the Ayatollah Khamenei as this strong, hardline cleric who turned Iran into a regional power. Wow, he's a really good go-getter. He just gets out there, he did kill 35,000 of his own people, but you know what? He's really good with the 9-iron. When he's out there in the country club just with that 9-iron, as long as the robe doesn't get in the way, he's really a good golfer. I mean, overall, it's just wild that the New York Times published this. At the end of the day, the Ayatollah Khamenei made Jeffrey Epstein look like a Boy Scout. I mean, literally at this point, Jeffrey Epstein in his grave is like, oh, that even makes me a little nervous. But the New York Times is like, he's just a chip off the old block, created that regional power. What a ball buster. And the White House released this about the objectives in Iran. First, destroying Iran's missile capabilities, annihilating their navy. Third, ensuring that the world's #1 sponsor of terror can never obtain a nuclear weapon. And then finally, ensuring the Iranian regime cannot continue to arm, fund, and direct terrorist armies outside of their borders. So it's nice to see some strategic objectives there. That last one there, though, is very interesting to me because the new regime with the new Ayatollah is basically going to do that minute one. They're doing it right now. So it is a little bit of a bonus objective of regime change, in my opinion, because any of these hardline clerics, especially that are related to the Ayatollah Khamenei, are going to continue using those proxy armies outside of their borders, as we're seeing them do right now. And a lot of these buffs are rolling in and striking the targets right now in Tehran, the ballistic missiles, and they're pounding them so hard that the ground's shaking like a bad hangover for the IRGC. And now the UK has kind of stepped up a little bit more, with Starmer calling Trump in a bid to mend the ties over the Iran war. Basically, Starmer's like, yeah, hey man, remember when you kind of got in that fight and I didn't come in and help you? I'm really sorry about that. Can we still be friends? Because yeah, we need you, because we see now that there is a massive threat from the IRGC and the fact that they hate the UK as well, and they've actually deemed the UK as a terrorist organization. So it's actually good to see Starmer kind of being like, hey bro, can I please be your wingman? That'd be great. Day 10, the degradation of Iranian air defenses is now basically at 0, maybe with some detached sites that could also be targeted by the B-52 at this point, because those detached sites likely are not talking to a dependable radar that could actually get them to lock onto something. With Iran naming Majabta Khamenei the new supreme leader overnight, the IRGC also pledged allegiance to him basically right away. Of course they're going to do that. I mean, they're basically like mafia bosses. They've been operating like mafia bosses for 47 years. So they pretty much know if they surrender at this point, the rest of the population that they've been murdering is not going to be too happy about that. So the mafia bosses are like, sweet, we'll go down with the ship with you instead of facing our own population. That's kind of the mindset that I think I'm seeing right now. Fresh barrages at Tel Aviv, and oil prices, as we expected, have blasted past $100 a barrel from the fires that are raging around the region, but mainly because the Straits of Hormuz is still being threatened at this point, with that third supercarrier on its way, and with the B-52 and other air assets striking down different capabilities of the IRGC to actually threaten the Straits of Hormuz with anti-ship missiles, drones, still kind of the guerrilla warfare style threats that are coming down, because the US has now destroyed over 30 of the main ships from the Iranian Navy. I mean, just wild. But at the end of the day, Iran is claiming this is an environmental disaster. At this point, they're like, yeah, we killed 30,000 of our own people, but we really care about the environment. The environment's very important to us. We think that the environment is the most important thing. The Iranian regime's like, killing and murdering our own people, that actually helps the environment as well. It helps keep pollution down. It helps keep them off the road. So what we're doing is actually for the environment. But the US has lost 8 service members at this point. One of them succumbed to wounds that occurred at a Saudi base attack, and Iran's rhetoric is ramped up. No ceasefire is what they're saying while the attacks continue, and they're accusing the US of trying to break Iran apart and seize its oil. Yeah, duh. That's exactly what the US is trying to do. Break Iran apart, cause fracture within the regime, seize its oil, and then hand that energy infrastructure over to a legitimate regime that will then make the oil production 10 times better than what it was before, and keep oil flowing to China and Russia as well. They're calling the strikes environmental warfare. Oh man, the Ayatollah, he just had solar panels everywhere. He was just so green. You know, he created a regional power and he did it with green energy. But the numbers are insane. 200 plus targets in 72 hours from the bomber force alone. B-52s pounding missile silos and IRGC command centers. Iran's ballistic missile shots dropped dramatically since day one, and their air defenses are pretty much toast. B-52s are flying with impunity, and they've been dropping ordnance since 1965. They've been in service since the 1950s, which makes them over 70 years old. And the pilots that fly them are less than half their age. Wait, does that make the B-52 a sugar daddy? The B-52 sugar daddy isn't even breaking a sweat at this point. They're going full balls to the wall, dropping dozens of JDAMs, joint direct attack munitions, and also cruise missiles. So as we saw in those videos, these B-52s can roll in, release their cruise missiles from a standoff distance, and then just continue flying in since now air superiority has been established. And then they can go in and ripple off dozens of JDAMs, joint direct attack munitions, specifically the 2,000 pounders. That's kind of where the B-52 makes its money. I mean, it carries in such a massive payload. At this point, the regime's arsenal is getting completely neutered, and to the B-52, all these different targets stand out like a vegan at a cattle ranch. I mean, they can see exactly where these targets are, and they're being pumped information from other fighters, MQ-9s, RQ-4 Global Hawks, pumping information to the B-52 real time to show it where these targets are and what needs to be struck next. So the B-52 crews execute wave after wave of precision strikes, neutralizing threats before they can hit allies or forces. The tactics are textbook here. Suppress air defenses first with stealth, create the silent corridors, and then bring in the heavies for that sustained pressure. The B-52, she's a big gal, but we love her, and the tech inside that thing is unmatched for a jet that old. The payload, the crew expertise means that the B-52 dictates the tempo of operations. American warfighters are the best in the world, hands down, delivering justice with overwhelming force. These B-52s are laying down pipe like they own a plumbing company at this point. So let's move to the 4D chess section. This is smart, decisive strategy, degrade missiles and command nodes to prevent retaliation and basically execute overwhelming force with the B-52 on all the different targets in Iran and pressure the regime without boots on the ground. The Straits of Hormuz is effectively in a soft closure, not from a physical blockade, but Iran's active threats with anti-ship missiles like the Ghadar 380 and Talay, swarm drones, fast attack boats, and sea mines that disrupt a fifth of the global oil flow. That's what's spiking the prices. IRGC is claiming control, warning vessels they'll be set ablaze, and even with their navy gutted, there's residual mobile threats that keep shipping halted by about 80% at this point. Majabta's appointment, that new Ayatollah, locks in the hardliner. They're like, yep, we're gonna go even more hardline. We're gonna double down on being a hardliner. So it's again, the US is ramping up, Iran is getting struck extremely hard, but they're also kind of trying to ramp up as well. So I would expect more asymmetric proxy plays from Iran, but the B-52 has a little something to say about that. Right now, as we speak, likely striking ballistic missile targets in Iran. The US posture is just pure aggression at this point. Protect allies, show resolve, and weaken Iran's terror sponsorship across the region. And that forces them, hopefully, to some sort of a crack in the regime itself, where then eventually the people of Iran can take over the country. But here's a quick hypothetical situation. So let's say things ramp up, B-52 strikes, naval strikes to hunt down every last Iranian anti-ship missile launcher and drone nest along the coast. If you look at that area, there's a lot of different places to hide those anti-ship missiles. But phase one is going to include massive amounts of ISR, and that's happening right now, likely, in my opinion. RQ-4 Global Hawks just watching the persistent stare, looking for anything that could be an anti-ship missile or an asymmetric play from Iran. So you've got that advanced RQ-4. You could also team it up with an even more advanced type of drone, which would be like the Anduril Fury drone that could have advanced sensors and actually get its first test in combat. So I'm hoping that thing makes it over there soon. Along with the Shield AI X-Bat that doesn't even need a runway. It can basically vertically take off from a naval asset and then go and look at any of the site, do ISR persistently, and also carry JDAMs. So they could be using AI to strike these different anti-ship missiles and hybrid threats along the coast, and having a constant patrol of an advanced armed drone or even the MQ-9 up there ready to strike any of these hybrid threats, I think will help to stabilize the area and eventually get the oil flowing again just like it was. The appointment of Majabta is showing that hardliners are still in control in Iran, and President Trump is saying that this could take weeks, and to me that makes sense from a military perspective. Fracturing the regime, targeting leadership, targeting C2, and specifically focused on getting the Straits of Hormuz open without any credible threat from Iran is what we'll likely see over the next few weeks, but not a quick process. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps is tough. They're tough. They're mafia bosses. So at this point, a couple more weeks to see what happens, to see if cracks form within the regime. What do you think happens? B-52s are dominating deep strike on Iranian missiles and command posts under Operation Epic Fury, but we've now got the new hardline leader, Majab Khamenei, so the pressure from both sides is ramping up. What do you think happens from here? How long do you think we'll see sustained strikes in Iran? Let me know in the comments below. Go ahead and follow me on X, follow me on Instagram. I'm posting there pretty much every day. And if you want to see me do a live multiple times per week with priority responses, click the link in the description, join the Maxerati room. I'll see you guys over there on the live, and then watch this next video that pops up right here. This is Ryan, also known as Max Afterburner, signing off.